Hi, I'm Dan Wester from Confluent. Let's take a look at the Google BigQuery Sink connector for Confluent Cloud, specifically version 2 that was released in 2024. Google BigQuery can be a great tool for managing and analyzing large amounts of data, whether you're using it for machine learning, data analytics, visualization, or just as a place to store your data. If you couple that with ApacheKafka, which allows you to move and process real-time data, you have the ability to use the best qualities of Google BigQuery with your streaming data. In order to connect them, we'll use a connector. There are two kinds: a source connector that allows you to put data into Kafka, where you can process and transform it, and a sink connector that allows you to move data into another system. In our case, the Google BigQuery Sink connector allows us to move Kafka data from Confluent Cloud over to a BigQuery table. Version 2 of this connector allows us to use the Storage Write API, which brings along quite a few important benefits, including stream-level transactions, gained efficiency, and a lower cost. You also have the ability to use Upsert and delete functionality, allowing for the inserting, updating, and deleting of table data. There are two ways to get your data into BigQuery: batch loading and streaming. Depending on your use case, there are advantages to both. Batch allows you to transfer batches of data, most likely costing you less, but losing the ability to use real-time data. Streaming allows you to use your data in near real time, but may end up costing you more. I recommend checking out the documentation for a breakdown of all the features and limitations of the Google BigQuery Sink connector. Now, let's take a look at how to set up and configure the Google BigQuery Sink connector. Here we are in Confluent Cloud. I've already set up a DataGen source that produces messages for my topic. Now I need to make sure that BigQuery is all set up. I've set up a dataset for stock trades. I've also added a table, current trade prices. I've also taken the schema from my topic and added it to the BigQuery table. In order to connect to Confluent Cloud, you'll need to make sure that you have the following permissions added to the user or service account. Since we already have messages being produced in the topic, we should be ready to go. Let's go ahead and add the new connector. I'll come back to Confluent Cloud and click Add Connector and search for the BigQuery Sink version 2 connector. I'll select the topic that I'd like to use, and I'll go ahead and generate and download a new API key. There are a couple different ways you can connect: using OAuth Shared App, Bring Your Own App, or a Google Service account. In this case, I'll use a shared app. I'll connect with Google Cloud by clicking the button, selecting the account, and giving it permissions. I now need the project ID and the data set. I'll go back to BigQuery and click on Details for my table and copy the project ID and paste it in. As well as the dataset ID. Depending on how your security is set up, you also might need to add in the Confluent cluster static IP addresses to your firewall's allow list. I don't, and so in this case, I'll just click Continue. As was mentioned before, there are a couple different ways to get your data over to BigQuery: batch, streaming, Upsert, and Upsert delete. In this case, I want my streaming data coming over, so I'll select streaming. You also need to choose the input Kafka record value format. In this case, mine is JSON SR, as that is the format selected in our DataGen connector. I'll click the Advanced Configurations. I always think it's a good idea to take a look at the advanced configurations to see if there's anything that might apply to your use case. In this case, I've already created a BigQuery table, and so I need to make sure that that maps back to my Kafka topic. You'll want to take a look at the documentation for the BigQuery connector to review some of the features I'm not showing off today, including configuring clustering, which can really improve performance if you're performing any upserts. If you click on this field and hover over the eye, you can see the format that they expect. In this case, I need my topic name, adding a colon, and then my table name. Once I have both of those, I'll go ahead and scroll down, just looking at the advanced configuration options to see if there's any that apply to me. If I was going to perform a single message transform, here's where I would do that. Or if I'd like to define a specific offset, I could set that here. In this case, neither of those apply to me, so I'll just go ahead and click Continue. I now have the option to select sizing. In this case, I'll leave it at 1 and click Continue. Here you'll have one last time to review your data and set up and select a name. In this case, I'll give it a new name. You can also see the JSON that's used to create this connector. Feel free to use this as a template if you'd like to use the CLI or Terraform provider in the future. I'll go ahead and click Continue, and our connector will be deployed. Confluent Cloud says that our connector was successfully deployed, so let's jump over to BigQuery to see if we see our messages. I'll go ahead and click on Preview and then click Refresh to see if our messages appear. And there they are. That's it. As you can see, the Google BigQuery connector is a great way to get your data flowing from Confluent Cloud into Google BigQuery. Be sure to take a look at the documentation for additional parameters and settings available for this connector. Until next time, happy streaming.